Hey, I'm Alex Southey, and you are listening to another episode of Your Worst Song. I'll skip to the chase because, or get to the chase? Skip to the... I'm mixing up my phrases, I think, but I'll cut to the chase. I have Lee Rose on from Ace of Wands, one of the coolest bands in Toronto, dare I say. And it's really a good conversation. We talk about I gotta come up with something else to say in these intros, but yeah, it was a good conversation. We talk a lot about how she had this whole other sort of what I would call almost career arc before Ace of Wands, which I had no idea about. That's a really interesting aspect. I don't really want to, all I want to do is tease it. I don't really want to give anything away, but maybe you know if you know Lee. Then we talk about Ace of Wands. We talk about just playing music. We talk about the process of songwriting and how sometimes it can be instinctual as opposed to overtly front of mind going for a sound or a vibe, as vague as a vibe may be. Hope you enjoy it. Again, I'm Alex Southey. This is Your Worst Song. If you like the podcast, give us a follow. Thanks.
I'm at work right now and just having a break for the podcast, which is nice.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks for using your break for the podcast. Remind me where you work. It's outdoors, that kind of
Well,
stuff,
I
right?
have multiple jobs, but in the outdoor, I'm an outdoor worker in the summer and spring, summer, and fall. I have a gardening design
Mhm.
business that I run. And then in the winter, I work at my mom's book bindery. So I'm here now and I'm just working on some old books,
So a
fixing them
book,
up.
so literally book bindery, as in you are the person who puts them back into a serviceable like book spine and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah, we fix them up. We do restoration of very old books, and then we also make new books from time to
Wow,
time, and like movie prop books and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
that's pretty cool. So this is where your mom works, or it's
Yeah,
her?
it's her business.
Okay.
So she's been a bookbinder for 35 years, 40 years, something like that. So my
Wow.
whole childhood, basically. Yeah.
Wow, you had that like book smell all around you in the
Oh
childhood
yeah.
is what I'm yeah. Well, that's a very comforting smell to everybody, but you got it like times 10 it sounds like.
Yeah.
What an interesting thing to get into though. Why did your mom, or maybe not why, but uh I don't
It is like a niche. It's
it's a
very
niche thing.
niche.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So I guess how did she get into it if you know?
Yeah, well, she studied art at OCAD and
Oh wow.
was not like art and sculpture and was not loving the post-secondary art world.
Sure.
So I think how it went was she dropped out of art school and then went and like met a bookbinder at a party.
Wow.
And they were looking for an apprentice, basically.
Ironically,
Um,
that's who I'd expect to meet at a art school party, not after leaving, you know?
yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And so it just kind of it came out of that. It wasn't she sort of did a bit of an informal apprenticeship with that bookbinder, and then took some classes. There's a Canadian Bookbinders Guild that we're part of, and so there are some classes you can take through them. But it's not a field that has a lot of formal study, at least in
Hmm.
North America. I think if you live in England, you can do
Right.
some like I think Oxford might have like a bookbindery
I could see that.
course at the university press there,
Hmm.
but it's kind of a lost art, so
Yeah,
it's
no, it
cool.
definitely it seems like it. Yeah. What are some like I'm sure you've done refurbished or whatever, some books that stand out to you? Like what are there any titles that off the top of your head you're like, "Whoa, this was a
Hmm.
1908 Anne of Green Gables or whatever."
I don't know that anything necessarily would stand out as like we have worked on some really old books.
Hmm.
And when you're like the books that when we work on like valuable books,
Yes.
like first editions or things like that, the kind of repairs that we're doing are very minimal because the more you do to it, it can decrease
Uh,
the value if
right.
you're putting new stuff on it. So mostly what we work on in the restoration side is people's books that have sentimental value for them. So they're not necessarily valuable. You couldn't necessarily turn around and sell it for
Right.
thousands of dollars, but the person has an attachment, a personal attachment to
Yeah,
it.
maybe it
So
was their great grandmother's or something.
exactly.
Okay, yeah, I see, I see.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting.
But we work on a lot of family Bibles from like the 1800s
That's
because
kind of
there were,
interesting.
oh yeah, like, and
Yeah.
they're huge, like this, like,
Oh,
6 inch
wow.
thick, like big leather
Tomes.
bindings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think there were in the 1800s, like mid 1800s, there were actually like Bible salesmen who would go around like door to door and sell like family Bibles to people, and they would put their records in it, like the births and deaths and marriages,
Oh,
and
whoa.
they would write all of that stuff in it. So all of that is maintained in the as a record of family history in these things. So the actual Bible isn't worth a lot of money, but
Sure.
the history is there for people. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
interesting.
wow. No, no, that's pretty interesting. Damn. I feel like you've set yourself up with two really cool jobs, but that I'm sure are rewarding, but also they seem like they lend themselves to also being a musician and needing
Definitely.
needing that free schedule kind of. Uh,
Definitely.
yeah, exactly. Do you want to talk a bit more about that? Just like the fact that I presume, well, one is your business, so theoretically
hmm
you get to leave whenever you want to. Um, and then one is your family's business. So, I mean, that's pretty nice, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I'm very lucky to have figured out how to make a living in a way that's flexible for touring and recording and the other things that I want to do. Even still, like I feel like I work at those jobs more than I want to
Sure,
work
of
at them.
course. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I want to be doing more music, but it can be hard to, I don't know, it can be hard to carve out the time when you're tired from working your day job.
Of course.
And but I feel like this year particularly I'm feeling like more driven to sacrifice some financial security in favor of trying to put more of myself into the music thing.
Why is that?
Not full time, but I
Yeah,
don't know. I feel like I've just reached a point of um wanting to commit to it a bit more seriously. Like um the whole industry is set up that you're constantly being told that you have to work so hard at social media, so hard at like the marketing end, so hard at the creative end. Like it's like a constant, it's a full-time job. But how
hmm
can anyone do it full time if they have to have a day job? Um, like it just doesn't make sense.
No, of course. No.
And and I feel like I've built up enough like I've worked hard at my day job businesses the last 10 years or so that if I thought, okay, I have to save enough money so I can take a month off to do music
hmm
or 6 weeks or whatever, that I would like maybe be in a position to do that and not feel like I was gonna like not come out the other side.
hmm
But and I don't know, it just feels like I'm at an age where if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it now. Like I'm not
I know what you
getting
mean.
any younger.
Yes, right, right, right. For to be uh well, this phrase comes to mind. It's kind of the shit or get off the pot. Not that that's the
Yes.
nicest phrase, but it's that. Um, apt. Um,
Yeah, and then I guess like if this all like I'm gonna try to do those things more with more conscious commitment. And if it doesn't turn out the way I want to, I've always I can always feel like I've had the experience and then I look at music in a slightly different way if I want to. If I mean, I'm always going to be doing it,
mhm,
but I have like value judgments on certain achievements or not achieving certain things at this
absolutely.
stage of my career or whatever it is. Like I have to also rein in all of those judgments too and not like put so much. emphasis on them.
It sounds like this has been on your mind quite a bit. I feel like it's probably on every working musician's mind. I'm relating to this very much,
Hmm.
but uh, yeah, it's something. That's why. Thank you for talking about it. I like talking about it with people on the podcast because I think it's
Hmm.
good to talk about it. There's this like mask that the industry would like us seemingly to put on where it's like, no, 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 this is all I do. I don't do anything else. Don't worry about the other stuff. And it's
Hmm.
like we need to kind of normalize that.
Hmm.
What does putting more of your, I guess I'm asking more tangibly, what does it look like putting more of your money towards music as generally as as general as that question is? Is it like
Um,
touring? Now you can go for longer, stuff like that?
uh, Maybe a little bit of that, but also just like my own personal practice around
Hmm.
music. Like I don't practice my instruments. Like
Yes, I
unless
see.
like I don't have a regular songwriting practice or like I kind of go through big long periods of drought where I am not writing at all and don't feel drawn to be creative because it's so much easier to just watch TV.
Wait, that's a bad thing?
Because it
Yeah.
feels like creativity can sometimes feel like when it's not flowing organically,
Yeah.
I feel as if there's something wrong with the creation. Like it's not
Hmm.
like forcing something out can feel like, I don't know, inauthentic or something.
Yes.
But at the same time, being a musician is a practice and you have to work at it to be good.
Yep.
So even if sometimes it's not flowing or
Hmm.
whatever, it's still worthwhile to like pick up the instrument and
Yeah.
play it or sing or whatever it is. So I think like devoting more time to that. Um, I'm learning how to play drums right now, which is super fun.
Saw that on Instagram. That's
Yeah.
cool.
So I want to like just picking up another instrument is helpful for like inspiration for
Hmm.
my other my other writing. I'm spending time working on a score for a horror movie.
Ooh, cool.
And so that's a huge learning curve for me as well because I'm not like formally trained
Sure.
in like composition per se, but but yeah, just like experimenting with my like DAW and
Hmm.
writing music and just like instrumental music, not with
Yeah.
like the purpose that it ends up being Ace of Wands or
Yes.
whatever.
Or that it's
Um,
vocally driven at all, which is a
yeah,
change. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So all of those things, but they all take time away from like my day job. So I have to like just make the time for them if I want them to happen.
Yeah. These are the brutal realities of being. But I like specifically, you've noted a thing that I wish wasn't the case, but is definitely the case, which is it would be nice if every time you played music or wrote music or whatever, it was part of that like romantic, oh, I'm moved and I feel like compelled to play versus no, you just gotta go every day and set up and it actually is a little bit more like a job, you know what I mean? We all
Hmm.
wish we could ride that romantic version all the time, but it really is the kind of show up every day and hope something happens.
Hmm.
Or at least that's a maybe a more, that's not necessarily maybe a better approach or a more satisfying approach, but it gets you more, maybe is a way I would put it.
Yeah, I think of when I was learning to play the violin and
Hmm.
had like, a weekly lesson and my practice in between the lessons could sometimes be like pulling teeth.
Hmm.
I didn't want to. I was, wanted to hang out with my friends or all of those things. But I still, there was something about the practice that kept me coming back to it. Otherwise, I would have stopped years ago.
Right, of course.
So it's just, I think it's, I started listening to this audiobook today that my mom is like telling everybody you have to listen to this book.
Okay.
And it's about the I think it's called, I heard there was a secret chord, and it's about music as medicine.
Oh,
And it's like
interesting.
how music interacts with like your brain, to like the actual science of it, to how it like
Hmm.
is potentially healing to different aspects of your mind and body. And I think I haven't just started it, but I think that there's a lot like intuitively that I think is true about that. That like
Oh,
the reason
absolutely.
why I would practice is because every time I played, I felt better.
Hmm.
Like it calmed some anxiety or some insecurity that might have been like floating just below the surface. And it's like the act of playing music is just gets me past that moment and into the next moment. So
Yeah.
even at the end of it, I haven't written a song or I haven't like had the next big hit on my hands. It's still like it was still good for me to do it.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great way of looking at it. It honestly, that the way you're describing it that way, it sounds more like mindfulness. What we would call in 2024 is like part of mindfulness. But I guess
Yeah,
that's a
that's
thing, right? Music therapy is
yeah.
a growing field, right? Um, that's a cool, first of all, interesting book idea, but also specifically using that title and presumably that example to set up
Hmm.
that's really smart because that song is kind of describing that.
Yeah, exactly.
Or that verse or whatever it is. Because I always did note that. It was like, oh yeah, he's sort of explaining why we like it or that we like it in this certain direction, progression.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I want to get back to the score briefly. How did you get involved with that? Were you approached or do you have a friend in the or what?
Yeah, it's a friend who's a filmmaker. Sam Scott and I have been collaborating on, he and I were in a band together when we
Hmm.
were like in our early 20s,
Okay.
for about 10 years. And then, but then he's since, and he's a musician as well, but he's since gone on to be a filmmaker.
Hmm.
And so we're working on I had done he had made a short film that I had done the score for, and now he's working on a feature that I'm working on the score for. So yeah, I mean, through a friend, but also like I think that's how so many people
Oh,
get started with
absolutely.
different things if they're like an unknown quantity, which I am.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
uh but it's really fun. I haven't had so much fun making uh music in a long time, like in terms of just trying something completely different and
Yeah, is it because
experimenting.
exactly, is it because the boundaries are so totally different from writing a conventionally structured song? Not that Ace of Wands
Yeah.
always does that, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. And just the because it you have so many opportunities to come up with so many different ideas, that there isn't like some things might be thematic in the score, but it's like truly mood based.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a really cool way to approach music. Um,
Yes. It's like
just
abstract art.
yeah.
I don't know. I no, I love it. I think that's so interesting. How are you leading the song or not songwriting, piece writing, score writing?
Yeah.
How are you how do you begin that? Is it based on like, okay, I'm writing to this scene. This person is coming around a corner. It's supposed to be scary, so I'm gonna, you know, what happens then?
Yeah, I mean kind of. I think like also in the context of this score, I also was just kind of coming up with instrumental music
Mm,
outside of any context of like what was
okay.
happening on the screen in advance, just to kind of play with different sounds
Hmm.
and vibes.
Did
And
you know
then
anything? Did you even know the premise or the
yeah, yeah,
genre?
yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But and yeah, and I had gotten some kind of musical cues
Okay.
around like, you know, sometime, and that not specifically with this, but with the short film, um I had gotten a version of the score, a version of the movie with
Hmm.
like just pulled audio from random places, like something like this, something like
Yes.
that.
Yes.
So that was helpful too. And then just like making it up based on like a template. So there's that, but then there are certain places where I was just kind of coming up with something that I could feel as like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity for a weird, creepy, like fiddle music
Yeah,
piece.
that's what I imagined. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, that makes me excited to hear it. Yeah. Yeah, I always love hearing the way people work on scores. Like there are so many different ways. I've heard that like I forget who did it. Maybe a Jim Jarmusch movie. Neil Young did the score, I think, but he
hmm
scored the entire thing just watching it start to finish
hmm
and playing guitar live along with it.
hmm
I forget what movie that is, but and then other people obviously that are work more like you. And yeah, I love hearing the that different. It must be
hmm
so much fun to have the boundaries be so different. But
hmm
maybe getting back to Ace of Wands has, because this is your second time scoring, uh, did the scoring the first time have an impact back on you as the band?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I don't know. I don't think so. Um, I think just from the perspective of um what the songwriting in Ace of Wands is so driven by my own story
Hmm. Hmm.
that I feel like, and I'm sort of experimenting now with having it not be so driven by that. But
Hmm.
but at that point, like the music that we've been working on recently, um I think it's like I get a tunnel vision when I'm like doing Ace of Wands stuff where it's
Yes.
like I'm trying to convey something like an emotion basically is like at the heart of everything.
Yeah.
And so those like external influences, I mean, maybe it would have like some subtle connection there, but
Right.
not something that was tangible for me.
No, no, you weren't like, wow, my music is way more cinematic now on
No.
the. Yeah, I would say Ace of Wands' brand of indie folk rock or whatever you would call it uh, is already somewhat, maybe not cinematic, but almost like dramatic.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yes, so it kind of lends itself to that anyway. Where did Ace of Wands come from? Is it based on the card?
Yep, it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And so how did you get into that?
It was just a random like get someone giving me a gift of a tarot deck.
Oh.
And it just kind of came to me at a time when I was ripe for tarot.
Yes, I see.
Just
What?
needing some guidance, needing some like external validation for my
Yeah.
feelings.
And if they have a cool aesthetic that you can flip over and whatever,
Oh,
then
so
hell
great.
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What does Ace of Wands mean? They all mean something, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the Ace of Wands is it represents a kind of spark or
Hmm.
like and like the birthplace of like creative energy. So the most common symbol for the Ace of Wands or the art like in the typical tarot deck is it's a picture of a branch. Usually it's like someone holding a branch that is cut like it's like a dead branch, but
Okay.
on branch is like a new leaf like
Ah,
sprouting out. Um
I like that. Yeah.
yeah, so it's that like initial like idea, the kind of the spark of creation.
So what does it mean when applied to the person who's having the tarot reading?
Um, I guess it could mean all sorts of different things. It depends on the context of the question being
Okay, I
asked.
see. I see.
Yeah, but and I thought of it like for the inspiration for the band name was that it was like it kind of summed up what I was trying to do
Hmm.
creatively
Mm-hmm.
at that time. It was like this was a new thing. It was my first band that I was like at the kind of the helm of the creative vision.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was the songwriter. Like I had been in my previous band that I was in for a very long time. I was the lead singer, but I wasn't the songwriter.
Huh.
Um, and so this was like the first time I was like actually writing songs, and so it felt like it just personified the whole thing.
Were you not the lead singer just because? the band had been established previously or whatever, and you were comfortable doing backing vocals? Or
Oh no, I was the lead singer.
oh,
I was
sorry,
the lead
sorry,
singer.
sorry. You were the
Yeah.
lead singer. You were the lead singer. My bad. I miss
But not the songwriter.
not the songwriter. Yes. Okay. So
Yeah.
my question is just flipped with the words. Was there a reason you waited? Were you always doing your songwriting on the side, but not? Oh,
No, I wasn't.
yeah. So why start
Yeah.
that?
Um, so that previous band, it was a band called Rival Boys that I was in with my brother Graham and Sam, who
Hmm.
is our like film collaborator. And we Graham and I had been, like started playing together when I was like 16. He's three
Hmm.
years older than me. And he just was the one writing the lyrics
Gotcha.
and and just like wanted me to sing them, and I played bass guitar,
Hmm.
and so we kind of started that way. But I always felt um I don't know if it was just like part of it was definitely an insecurity feeling like I was not any good at
Hmm.
songwriting. Like I had my thing that I was good at, which was singing and playing the bass.
Mm. Yes.
But then like as soon as you go into writing lyrics, it adds a whole other layer
Of
of
vulnerability.
vulnerability.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I felt like whatever I was offering wasn't as good as what my brother was offering. And also, I just didn't want to go there. Like, I didn't want to go
Hmm.
there emotionally. Like, it was,
Wow. Even in your teens, I feel like that's when everybody's willing to like just like scribble their
yeah.
feelings in a notebook. You were not that way. You were very guarded.
No,
Huh.
I was not. I mean, it was, um, yeah, like I don't even really remember if I had like a journal or any even, I mean, maybe I did for like a month or two and when I was 13, but then I
Yeah.
just gave up on it. Um, yeah, I don't know. Um, I wasn't a poet or like I always felt like other ways of expressing creation, which was the
Huh.
playing and the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
singing. Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting that you've come in my opinion, so far from that uh
Hmm.
into so what changed? When did you gain that confidence?
Um, I think it was not so much gaining confidence as more like just realizing a necessity of like
Uh-huh.
of that like expression needed to something needed to come out.
Yes.
And that was and the other aspect of it was that Rival Boys had broken up, and I was just desperate to be in a band again. Like I had to express that part of myself, and I couldn't wait around for anyone to
I know
write me
exactly what you
songs.
mean.
I had to
Yes.
just do it.
Yeah. Why did Rival Boys break up, if I may ask?
Um, it was kind of a complicated ending. We had
Okay.
like there was some basically like just some personal mental health
Gotcha.
challenges that were
Yeah.
going on that were like untenable for the situation, and it was a tough one because like that was something that we had been in for almost 10 years. It was like my whole adult life up to that point was in that
Right.
band, and we also had some like pretty decent industry opportunities that had come
Mhm.
up. Like we had a major label distribution deal and a record deal and like other things
Whoa.
happening. But then those but then we ran into label interference with the
Ah.
creation and like the
Ah.
art, and that was really hard to manage. And I think like all of us, particularly me, but all of us to a certain extent really didn't know how to say no. Like didn't know how to say no and didn't know how to argue if we didn't agree to something,
Mm.
because it felt like oh shit, like we've been given these opportunities. Like if we push back in any way, they're going to be like,
Yes.
okay, no, sorry, we're
Yeah.
done with you now. So it felt like
Wow.
we were sort of stuck, and then it didn't feel good anymore.
Yes.
And so then it just kind of
So
blew up.
that plus the mental health issues plus
Yeah.
etc. It just all was like, let's not do
Hmm.
this.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's a ride though.
it was a ride. It was a
Yeah.
ride.
That's a whole ride
Yeah.
to have to go through and then end, and then you got back on the ride,
Have
basically.
to start
That's
again.
a
Yeah.
big choice. Yeah, like I the drummer that I had been playing with for a long time. I won't air what happened with their band, but he was his name is Craig. He's a great drummer. It had nothing to do with him, but he was in a previous band. He's from Ireland, and he was in a previous band that did really well over there. Got to the point where they had representation in the States. They were going to do a state like big tour starting in California, whatever, and it fell apart for reasons left to be
Hmm.
said. And uh, then he eventually came over to Canada, I think, and just like started again. But it sounds a little bit like you. It's just like, I don't know. Do you mind talking more about that? Like, it wasn't it fucking hard to just be like, I
Oh
guess I'm
yeah.
gonna start. Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds tough.
Yeah. Well, it was definitely like a heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking.
Yes, yes.
And then my like I had a basically like a two-year time where I wasn't really doing anything
Hmm.
musically. Um, and I had this opportunity to play violin on a tour with Ron Hawkins and the Do Good
Hmm.
Assassins
Hmm.
and the tour was opening up for Blue Rodeo across Canada for three
Wow.
weeks.
Yeah.
And so we were playing, that was like actually my first proper tour. Like Rival Boys had done, we had played a lot, but like we hadn't really toured. Like the whole perception I have of the industry and touring now is like completely different than what I had when I was 22 or something. It's like there's a whole world out there,
Yeah.
apparently.
Yeah. Who
But
knew?
so anyway, it was my first kind of touring experience, and it was playing like Massey Hall and
Wow.
like these like huge arenas. We played like the place where the Winnipeg Jets play in Winnipeg, and
Whoa.
like the Queen Elizabeth Theater in Vancouver. It was like all of these really crazy like soft seater
Yes.
multi-thousand person audience, and like catered food, and it was just like holy shit, this is like a dream come true.
Yeah.
And having that experience after a period of like being really unclear about
Hmm.
whether I was even going to pursue music at all, um, was just like this wake up where I was like, this is what I have to do. And I have to do
Wow.
everything in my power to make sure that I can headline this kind of place like in the future. So it was it was like a driving like thing of like, okay, now I'm gonna go.
You've already had two careers. People would like love to have like I this is amazing. I know you've gone through great struggles and so on. But I feel like those heights alone almost to me as an outsider, I go like you've already think about the number of people who even say they're musicians or that they're going to try music and then don't do anything.
Right.
You're like in the top 5% actually of musicians. You know what I mean? For some of those, I've said that to a few people on this podcast. It's I think the ceiling is almost smaller, like lower than we think in a weird way.
Hmm.
Uh, uh,
Interesting.
Depending
Yeah.
on where you are, obviously,
Yeah.
and you know, it's all subjective, but certainly in Canada, dare I say,
Hmm.
pretty much as soon as I stepped into the music industry, music scene in Toronto, I was like, oh, the ceiling is very low. Doesn't mean I'm
Right.
at the ceiling, but it's like I
Yeah.
can see detail on the
Right.
ceiling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but no, that's so interesting. And I guess my final question before we get into the four main questions is, how are you not more jaded? I would be so
Oh.
jaded. I would be such an asshole.
I don't know. I feel pretty jaded sometimes. Um, yeah, I mean, I think what changed, like so much has changed in the last like well since Ace of Wands started. There was
Hmm.
in terms in the music industry in general, but also just like personally for me.
Hmm.
But I think the biggest difference that I feel personally, it has to do with my sense of having some agency in my life. So
Hmm.
like when Rival Boys was a band and I was kind of going going through all of that stuff, it really felt like just putting one foot in front of the other. Like I don't remember making any decisions. It was
Mm.
just like things just felt like they happened to
Mm-hmm.
us or to
Mm-hmm.
me. And and of course that's not true. Like we made choices to get
I get
ourselves
it.
where we ended up, but it really felt like that. And with this project, I really feel much more in control is not the right word, but just like that I can choose
Yeah.
my
Agency.
destiny
Oh, it makes
kind of
sense.
thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And and that feels a bit empowering, even though sometimes I feel like even I'm making my best decisions and we're doing our best work and it's still not landing in people's ears, or like people aren't coming to the shows, or whatever it is that feels like this is not working, or it feels like this is failing in
Yeah,
quotes.
air quotes. Yeah, yeah.
Um, but but at the heart of all of it, having some sense that like, no, I can make decisions that feel like this is either right for me or it's wrong for me, and not have to feel so, I don't know, just
Beholden to
at
some other
odds, yeah, with
force
some
or
other
something.
person. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I'm and maybe that helps with the jadedness a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. I'm sure that does. That's true. Well, okay. Yeah, I mean, you hinted at a lot of really cool experiences and touring and whatever. Uh and I know one question I'm going to ask, but I'm going to save that. But the first question we normally ask is, what's your favorite gig memory?
Yeah, I was thinking about this one because we've had a lot of really cool shows.
Right.
But but I think from I'll just like say a more recent one, which is that we played at the Opera House in the summer. We opened for this legendary like post-punk goth band, the Chameleons, who are
Yeah.
from the UK. And that was a really great night.
Hmm.
I've never played the Opera House before, but I love that venue, and it was a like sold out crowd. But
Wow.
what was so great about it, I feel like, was I just felt like we were at the height of our powers
Uh,
as Ace of Wands. Like it
yeah.
just felt like gel.
Uh,
And like we've been touring a lot the last couple of years, so we have
hmm.
that gel happening with the live show.
Yeah.
But
It's a tight
but
live
it
show,
felt,
I can say.
thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
But it felt elevated that
Hmm.
night, and I think partly because of the venue and the crowd, but it just felt like, yes, this is us, and we're like serving it to you on this
Yeah.
beautiful, like ornate platter with the opera house
Cool.
curtains and the carved woodwork and all of that stuff. It was like it was perfect.
That sounds perfect, and that sounds like a dream. Yeah, to just feel like I'm wielding the best of what I have, and I'm wielding it as well as I can, you know,
Yeah.
and feeling tight with the rest of the band members. Okay, so
Yeah.
the smaller question I was going to ask, which I'll usually do if somebody has an interesting touring history, what is the most interesting green room you've been in, or what place had the most
Oh.
interesting green room?
We played this place in uh Louisville,
Hmm.
Kentucky. Whirling Tiger, I think it's called Whirling Tiger. And that was probably the best green room I've ever been in. Interesting. I don't know if it was like particularly interesting, although they did have some like weird props that
Oh.
seemed like they were from like other strange events that they had had. But it was just like, it was just a really beautiful,
Okay,
like
I see.
cozy, air conditioned. It was like 100-degree humidity when we were
Yeah, I
down
think in
there.
Kentucky, yeah, you'd want air conditioning in the
Yeah.
summer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So just you liked that it was just cozy and you're basically saying it was very nicely decorated.
Yeah. And like couches and a proper place to do your makeup, and
Yeah.
I
Oh, oh.
appreciate I appreciate when you're given like small
Oh,
little
totally.
comforts.
Same to the extent that a green room, air quotes, I've been just brought up multiple times on this podcast is uh of course now the place's name escapes me. It's a classic place in Toronto. They do a lot of class of 2020 X exclaim
The
events.
Monarch?
Yes, okay. That little curtain,
Oh yeah.
at the corner. That's
Yeah.
that's my favorite. It's cozy. It's got a little plant there or whatever. I'm
Yeah.
easily impressed, I guess. Um, no, okay, that's interesting though. That sounds interesting. And that's a good answer for best gig. That's cool that you chose it. It's like this is the height of us. Or
Yeah.
a height.
Hmm.
Um, okay, well, worst. What about worst?
Oh my God, there have been so many bad gigs. Um, Probably one of the worst. I've had a couple of shows where, so I play MIDI like foot bass pedals
Yeah,
with
right.
while I play guitar, and I've had some technical difficulties with those over the years,
Mm,
and that is horrible when that happens because it is such an integral part of the music.
yeah.
And probably the worst example of that was we were opening up for the Lowest of the Low in Buffalo at also a big venue. It was
Hmm.
like it's called the Town Ballroom. It's probably like a 1,800 person venue. Again, sold out. The bass pedals somehow had transposed themselves like a couple of keys
Oh
in
God.
one direction or another, and I could not figure out on the fly how to like because the MIDI like there's no screen or anything. There's no like menus to toggle through. It's just like you have to press this key and this key and this key and
Oh,
this
okay.
certain
Yes.
sequence to get it out
Yes.
of a program. And without looking at the manual, I had no clue.
Oh Lord.
So it was just like, okay, well now we just don't have bass
Yeah,
for the
right.
whole set. Um,
Wow.
and that is it's weird when that happens too because I find that my muscle memory for playing the songs is so with my hands is so linked to my feet at this point that
Mm.
when I'm not playing the bass pedals, I like can't remember how to play guitar.
Wow. I could see that though. You're just, yeah, muscle memory is a intense thing,
Yeah.
you know? And it lets you get away with stuff that you feel. I'm sure when you're doing both of those things, it's almost like you're thinking about both and neither. It's a very
Yeah.
odd thing.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
It's like doing the head pat and the fucking thing.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know what that's called, but uh, okay. I'm curious how Ace of Wands writes a song, or maybe completes a song is a better answer. Like
Hmm.
presumably it starts with you, but what happens
Hmm.
when you bring it to the other members?
Yeah, so usually I will write the lyrics and bass and guitar, my guitar or a violin, depending on
Hmm.
what the song is. And I'll try to do a demo of some description before I send it, and then I'll send that to the band.
Can the
Um,
demo be as simple as like on your phone, or do you mean a slightly more legit
yeah,
demo?
I do mean like yeah, slightly more legit only because I like it. I like doing it.
Yeah. Well, and it's nice to have a full arrangement because it's like not only is say it's a person say a song is a person, not only do you see the person, you get a sense of the personality, and I
Yeah, yeah,
think that's necessary, you know?
for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, demo, and the demo will be like very occasionally I'll program a couple of drums in there,
Mm,
but
mm,
not often. And add like one or two like vocal harmony ideas for
yeah.
Anna
Hmm.
and like guitar lead ideas, but very like it's super minimal
Yeah.
because I'm very much a fan of when we work on it together that those guys are writing their own parts.
Hmm.
Because there is something like really magical in the three of us creatively that I think I don't achieve just like on my own, or like what I achieve is just different. It's
Hmm.
different than the Ace
Sure.
of
Yeah.
Wands vibe.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's usually like a stripped down version of the song, and then occasionally like Anna and I will get together on our own, and Jody and I will get together on our own
Hmm.
because we're just like not a jam band, like almost at all. Like very rarely we've like done mushrooms and like played music together for like a
Very
few
rarely,
hours.
not never, but very rarely.
Yeah, but it doesn't like the songs are so they are so arranged. They're like it's like my like orchestral background is like coming through, I think, in the music a
Yes.
lot. So
Yeah.
we don't just go off onto these like weird tangential
You don't,
musical things.
but I think that some of your songs have laid the groundwork. If you wanted to take breaks, you
Yeah.
could spin off into these Pink Floyd-esque
Yeah.
folkier things, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, there are sections. You're right. It's very tightly arranged, but some of the arrangements are they're integral enough that they could imply maybe that you would be able to do that even if you don't.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So that's interesting. Is that reflect is that as in that you all bring your own separate things to a song, even if it starts with you? Is that reflected in the songwriting? Like, would you sign your songwriting as Ace of Wands if it's an Ace of Wands song? Or are you still
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
just your name? Oh, okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's very much just like you're a group entity, even though you're sort
Yes.
of the spark, let's
I'm the
say.
leader,
Yes.
but yeah, it's a group effort for sure.
Wow, that's nice
Yeah.
and probably healthy. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, okay. What about Ace of Wands' best song?
The best song. Oh my God. So I went back and listened to all of our recorded music, just in preparation.
Yeah, wow.
It was hard to figure this out. But I think our best song out right now is on our last record,
Hmm.
and it's called Blackbird Blackheart.
Okay, yep.
I think it kind of captures what I love most about like a pop song writing.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
it has a like it's got a nice hook in the chorus. It's got like a
Yep.
nice arrangement. Everything like the harmonies, it's all like it's very like warm and inviting. Um,
You're right about all that, and yet it is the last descriptor I would have expected you to provide. The
Warm and
poppy.
inviting.
No,
Oh,
no, no, no. Poppiness.
oh,
No, no, you're austere and closed off. No, no, no. I'm joking. Yeah, poppy. I'm surprised just because it's not that there's no element of that in some of the songs, but it's certainly not a main ingredient, right? Uh
yeah, I don't know though. I found I have a funny relationship with the term pop music
oh,
because
okay, sure.
to me, I feel like it represents like I think so much music all like has an element of pop to it, and it like
Definitely.
the pop is the thing that is like the hook.
The hookiness of it is the
Yeah,
pop. Yes, I it's almost like the sugar in a song is
yeah,
the pop. Okay, I see, I see. I was obviously I'm referring more to what we know as like post 2010 top
right.
40, right? You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. No, it's definitely not that, but it has the hooks
The
that
trademarks and the hooks. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, like I think of like one of my bigger musical influences, um, that like Nirvana. I love
Hmm.
Nirvana. I've
And
spent
it's
my
all
whole
hooks.
childhood. Oh yeah, like that
Yeah.
is like pop music.
Totally. Totally. Pop music just distorted literally is what it yeah. What did the I somebody derisively said this about them, but I almost think it sounds more like a compliment. I forget who it was, but it was another 90s maybe producer or something, but they said that Nirvana is just REM with a fuzz box. And I was like, yeah,
Oh,
that's fucking great. Uh,
that is funny.
like REM is great. Fuzzbox, yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, anyway, it's reductive for Nirvana, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, interesting. I see, I wouldn't have expected you to say Nirvana either. So that leads me to wonder who are some of your other major influences?
PJ Harvey for sure.
Okay. Yep.
She's probably my favorite like active songwriter, like musician at this moment.
Hmm.
Her like kind of I don't know, like the in terms of idols, someone who I
Yes.
like literally like I would idolize
Yes.
is PJ Harvey from the perspective of just the breadth of her music. Like he just writes like whatever
Yeah.
she wants. And
It
it's
seems very
amazing.
free. Yeah, it's yeah, exactly.
Like
And tr
from record to record is all it's very different and
hmm.
it's all incredible.
Definitely.
So
Okay.
I appreciate that like from the perspective of the variety because
Hmm.
I don't feel pinned down by any one genre of music in my
Hmm.
writing, and it's cool to like see another musician who is
Yeah.
inspired by all sorts of different things and it's working. Um,
This is maybe sort of related to how you look at your music, or it could be. I guess that's actually the question. When you went through all of that with the previous band and getting the notes from the major label and so on, do you do your memories of what the major label notes were ever factor into the music you write now? Not as in, oh, they said this would be a good idea, so I'm going to add this now to be a good player.
Yeah.
Uh, Even the opposite. Maybe they said they wanted that, so fuck that. I'm going to avoid it
Hmm.
in my new band.
Yeah, I think to a certain extent, all of those external influences that you might have around like what someone says popular music should sound like, or that like
Hmm.
the chorus should come in before the first 30 seconds is over, or
Classic.
whatever, like
Yeah,
all
yeah.
of that shit. I mean, it's all useful information for me. And occasionally the song just is that
Yes.
without
Right.
because that's how it feels best.
Hmm.
But I don't think I try to let it color my songwriting one way or the other, like in terms of like like a fuck you,
Yes, I
like to
see.
that, or the opposite. And I think that when I am thinking too much about it is when I have writer's blocks.
Hmm.
That if I'm like trying to write a punk song, or I'm trying to write
Aha.
like this or that, like it just if I'm ever trying to do something, it doesn't
Hmm.
happen.
Yes, it's so it sounds like it's much better for you, or it feels better for you creatively to just follow an instinct, even if you don't know where the instinct is going,
Yeah,
and then hone wherever you ended up, kind of thing.
yeah,
Huh.
exactly.
Okay, well that maybe leads us in an interesting way to the last question, which is what's your worst song? What's Ace of Wands' worst song?
uh, um yeah, this was really hard too because
Actually,
I
what
th
was harder? Just super quick.
the
Picking the
worst song was
Okay,
harder. Oh
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess like worse it could mean all
Of
sorts of different things.
Yes.
But yeah, I think the song I picked is from Lioness, our first record, and
Mm-hmm.
it's called Heart's Disease.
Okay.
And for me, that song just doesn't fit. It just is like it's an it's an outlier for what Ace of Wands was at that time, and
Hmm.
then also has grown into.
Hmm.
Like it just doesn't feel like it works um with the whole vibe and energy of the band. Like I and I think it's a bit like it's a bit twee. There's a little like earnestness to the lyrics that is like cringy to me.
Yeah, that's a
So like,
fine line.
oh, I know.
Yeah, it's a real fine line. Because some earnestness is really endearing and nice in a
Yeah, it
nice
can be
way,
nice.
and twee a little bit can be, right? But it's a little goes a long way, I find.
Yeah. Um, and
That's
like there
funny.
are some parts of it that I like the strong, like this song has like the structure of the song. I wrote that song, and then I think like the 5 or 6 songs that I wrote after that have the exact same like bridge structure.
Oh, wow,
So I
wow.
can like hear it like, oh, this is the one that like this was like me learning how to write a
Yes.
song, and then I wrote it better the other
Wow.
times.
That's a really good, like, tangible with examples answer to that question. Just like it's when I discovered doing something, so inevitably I got better at it in other songs,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Huh. Is there anything maybe more even more obvious in it? Like, did you like why this isn't a fake example, but like why'd I add a kazoo? Something that just does not sit with Ace of Wands at all.
Um,
Because I get what you mean by vibe, but
yeah.
by its very nature, it's hard to get your
I
head
think
around.
it's my guitar part is
Ah,
just really like I got the capo on like the fifth fret or something. Like it's too high and it's like
yeah.
all twinkly
Uh-huh. And you were
and
wearing a fedora and
oh
some sort of half suit, but it's
yeah,
a
it sounds kind of
cardigan.
yeah, well no, but no, wouldn't dare. But no, I don't know. There's like it's like how maybe it would have sounded better if it was like in a different key or
I
something. Like
gotcha.
something is just not quite, it's too high.
Yeah, no, it
Too
does give it a different character. It's the Here
hmm
Comes the Sun character, which is
Yeah.
beautiful for that song.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah,
Exactly.
I think that's Capo 7, but yeah. Okay, interesting. Well, thank you. Thanks for sharing all that. I feel like I got to
My
know you a little
pleasure.
better. Yeah,
Yeah,
this was
this was a lot of fun.
absolutely. Yeah, it's cool.
And
Yeah.
before we, I mean, I don't know if we're signing off, but I did want to mention our new song that's coming out. If people, I don't know when people will be hearing this,
This will be
but
out well, you're putting it out in January, right? Or no, you're putting
January
it out.
1st.
Okay, so this will be out before then. So yes, go
Amazing.
for it. Go for it.
Okay, well, I'll just tell everybody about, so we have a song coming out called World of Women, which is going to come out on the 1st of January. So your New Year's Day, like blues can be
Ah,
accompanied by some creepy music.
that's smart.
And yeah, it's a cool song. It's a like a kind of a Baroque string arrangement
Hmm.
that we wrote when we did a residency at the Banff Center
Cool. Yeah, I've heard about
um,
that.
many years ago, and it ended up being a secret song on the vinyl edition of the
Mm-hmm.
Desiring LP.
Mm-hmm.
But I just felt like it was getting lost in that context. So
Yeah.
we wanted to re-release it as a digital song. So it'll be available, everybody should listen to it. And yeah,
Yeah, I
World
wish
of
we'd
Women.
no, thank you. That's great. Well, let's talk a bit more about that. So how did the song come to be? What, like, why the name, it's etc.
Oh, okay. The song is it's lyrically, the idea is around trying to understand some of the kind of like prescribed behavior that like females are told to do
Hmm.
in relationship, like in
Ah,
romantic
ah.
relationship and in friendships and um with other women.
Oh.
And so it's about kind of clarifying those ideas, how attraction works or doesn't work, and feeling and all that idea of agency that we were talking about
Mm-hmm.
before. It's about those ideas and then kind of at the end of it, this sense of being in community with other women and not feeling like we have to make all these decisions about our lives like in isolation from each other.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so it's about that, and then the music itself is it's cool because I feel my relationship to violin. I was a classically trained violinist, and I went to like post-secondary school for violin performance, and so it was a very like rigid
Hmm.
upbringing around music, and finding the place for violin in a rock and pop context has been hard for me.
Hmm.
Um, and this was one of those songs where I felt like I was really taking my like classical influence and putting it into this new context successfully. Like it
Yes.
felt like I was like I had, I don't know, crossed over to a new dimension of like
Mm-hmm.
cool rockness with the violin. So it was a nice moment for me for that. And yeah, it was the other thing about it was funny when we were at the Banff Center. I think it depends on, we were doing like the musician in residence program,
Mm-hmm.
and the other musicians, I think of the like 20 people that were participating, there was only maybe one or two other like pop acts, like
Oh, really?
rock. Everyone else was sort of doing kind of experimental
Oh, wow.
avant-garde instrumental music.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like such a weird, like triggering thing for me, going back to like, oh no, now do I have to like justify like the value of pop music
Yeah.
in terms of its like intellectual property or
Oh
whatever?
God.
Like
Yes,
it
I
was
would have
like
thought the same thing.
I'm just writing songs about my feelings and
Yeah,
you're like playing
exactly.
like this like atonal weird like stuff. And so it kind of came also out of that, like being inspired by people just playing weird music and
Cool.
wanting to share it with people. So it was awesome.
No, that sounds like a success on all fronts of
Yeah.
song making. You said you frequently work with Sam, who's the film
Yeah.
aspect of what you do now. Is there going to be any film-based stuff happening? Not full film, obviously, but like music video or whatever clip with this
Um,
song.
with this song, it's just something that I've made,
Ah,
which is like a lyric video that I've put together. Where right now we have a new record that is recorded,
mm-hmm.
and mastered and all that, and so we're kind of working on getting our ducks in a row for that release, and we are working on some cool videos and stuff for that music, but the World of Women release is on a budget of $0, so
Yeah.
I'm doing it myself.
Gotcha. Nice. And that's Jan 1st, right? January
Yep.
1st. Remind me, are you guys on a label?
We are on Fortune Stellar Records,
Okay.
for like a digital licensing deal,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
for Desiring, and which was our last full length.
Yeah, I
And
love that
so
album. Yeah.
thanks.
Hmm.
And but that sort of is the like it's a little bit of like I guess informal, I guess would be what I would
Yeah.
call, just in
Okay.
terms of like relationships with record labels, I think has changed so much over the
Yes.
past 10 years in terms of like what the artist is responsible for, what the label is responsible for. Like it really feels like such a group effort
That's a
at all
very
points.
diplomatic way of saying it. That's good. Yeah. That's very
Yeah,
true. It's a group
but they
effort.
are awesome at Fortune Stellar. Andrew and Shiloh, who run the record, are like the kindest, most encouraging people,
Hmm.
that I've worked with in that kind of context. So they're awesome.
Great. Well, yeah. Okay. Awesome. You got the single out January 1st. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks, Alex.
Of course, we usually end it with basically the guest reintroducing themselves and saying the name of the worst song and their band name. So would you mind doing that?
Sure. So I'm Lee Rose from Ace of Wands, and our worst song is Heart's Disease.
I am a spark, a circuit, a wire in the back of your mind, your brain synapses fire. You are the moon, a reflection that plays